the incoming writer on Justice League of America maybe caught the ear of Jeff Johns and said, okay, can we make sure that Alan and Jenny don't have that happy reunion in the end? Can you just hold off on that? But in any event, a lot of readers were happy to see that Alan's daughter was back. Okay, before I talk about one final major story arc, that being the Dark Things, I do want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the relationship between Alan and his son Todd Rice, aka Obsidian. Now, by this time, it was evident that Todd's mental health issues had been effectively resolved. And so there was a much better relationship between father and son. However, after Infinite Crisis, a new wrinkle in their relationship did start to bubble up. And that was all surrounding Todd's homosexuality. Now, if you go back and read Obsidian's pre-crisis appearances, he's very clearly portrayed as a heterosexual character. I want to say he even had a short-lived romance with the Beth Chapel Dr. Midnight. But then around 1995, I want to say, in the pages of the post-Zero Hour Justice League America, Obsidian all but came out to his fellow JLAer, fellow Infinity Inc. teammate Al Rothstein, aka Nuklon. In this one issue, Todd explained to Al that there were only two people in the world who he really loved. He loved his his sister Jenny, of course, and then he loved Al. And I don't want to say that Nuklon was a homophobe, but around this time he was a bit of a lunkhead, so his response to his friend was less than what Todd was looking for. Basically, Al was saying, well, yeah, I love you like a brother, but I don't love you in that way. And it clearly made Al feel uncomfortable. Again, I don't think it's because he found knowing his friend was gay to be unsettling, but I think it happens regardless of your gender, your sexual orientation. When someone who you see as being like a sibling comes to you and tells you that they love you in a romantic sense, it is something which can certainly send you for a loop. In some cases, can actually threaten an ongoing friendship. And in the end, both men came to a resolution, and Al made it quite clear to Todd that he did love him, but in a completely platonic way. And Todd, for his part, was okay with it. Now, I said Todd all but came out. The words gay, homosexual were never used in this comic book. It was pretty clear that at this point in the 90s, DC was willing to present the idea of a character being something other than heterosexual, but they weren't ready to use certain terms just yet. They weren't ready to say this character is homosexual. But it was something that had been on the minds of different creators for some time. In one interview, Steven Sadowski, one of the original pencilers on JSA, said that when he would return to the title, Obsidian's homosexuality would be addressed. And I don't remember Sadowski being able to address that. I can't remember exactly where in JSA or Justice Society of America it was revealed that Todd was homosexual, although it was carried out in an issue of Manhunter, where readers saw that Todd was in a homosexual relationship. And so in Justice Society of America, that's where Alan would learn that his son was gay. And I think it was handled pretty well at the start, actually. Alan went through different stages that other parents in the real world have experienced when a child of theirs comes out to them. He started by questioning whether it was his fault, whether he had a role to play in this. Was it because he didn't know his son growing up? Was it because Todd had been raised in such an abusive relationship? Such an abusive foster home? Is that what led him to become homosexual? And of course, that wasn't the case. Being in an abusive situation does not make one a homosexual. Being adopted or being raised in foster care does not make one homosexual. One does not choose to become homosexual. One is born with a certain orientation, and as they get older, they realize what their orientation is. But a lot of parents in the real world don't see it that way, and certainly that was being played out here in the pages of Justice Society of America. So after Alan went through that phase, we came to the conclusion that it wasn't his quote-unquote fault or his responsibility that his son was gay. Alan quickly went through a period of denial where he couldn't bring himself to ask his son, Todd, how's your boyfriend? There were some very tense moments where all Alan could stammer out was, Todd, how is your friend? And while it didn't create an emotional downward spiral for Todd, even though it didn't make him turn evil again, it was certainly something which caused something of a rift in the relationship between father and son for a time. And I really like how the other characters handled it, because this could have become something very preachy, where Jay and others could have really took Alan to task and said, oh, for goodness sake, Alan, we fought Nazis and their agents in World War II. We've seen some horrible evils in all our decades of crime fighting, and you're making your son's homosexuality into this great nuisance, this great tragedy for you. Get over it, man. But that didn't happen, and I like how the other members of the JSA let Alan figure it out for himself. And over time, Alan would perhaps not be completely accepting of his son's homosexuality, but was something which he could talk about. There was one particular issue which was really sweet, where in the end, Alan and Todd went into a diner, or a bar rather, and they both had a couple of beers, and Alan was able to say to his son, while it was uncomfortable for him, he still loved his son all the same, and he just wanted the best for his son. So it was nice to see that whole aspect of the relationship play out. And certainly one thing that fans would regret would not continue going forward in the New 52 era. And there were at least a couple of times where Todd himself was able to joke about it. It was in one of the post-Jeff Johns issues of Justice Society of America, where in the end, Todd explained to everybody that the issues related to his being able to interact with his sister in the same physical space had been resolved. More on that on part 6 of episode 116, by the way. But Todd also explained that his homosexuality had been cured and he was no longer gay. And that led to all of the JSAers, Alan in particular, giving these really quizzical looks, to which Todd then broke into laughter, saying, "Haha, guys, I fooled you. I'm still gay. I'm okay." And the other JSAers had to laugh, looking at Alan's expression. But it was nice to see that at least by the end of the pre-Flashpoint era, father and son had reached a good place in their relationship. And so just looking at my timer, I'm down to 4 minutes. And while The Dark Things is certainly not one of what I would call Alan Scott's highlights, it is something which I'll need a few minutes to talk about before I talk about Alan's apparent demise at the end of the pre-Flashpoint era. So, folks, part 6 of episode 116, I am pretty sure is going to be a full-length episode, so that's going to come your way in 2 weeks from now. And I would say that will definitely cap off our look at Alan Scott in the pre-Flashpoint era. Meaning that when I do get talking about Alan Scott again in future months, I'll be looking at his New 52 era career. Just to let you guys know right now, for episodes numbers 117, 118, I'll be getting into some Canadian comics programming. I'll be looking at, for episode 117, a wonderful graphic novel by Emmanuel Chateauneuf called Queen Street, published by Chapter House Comics. And then for episode 118, I'll be looking at Victorian 4, a new ongoing series from Sam Noir and Matt Tavares. So just giving you that quick heads up here while I've got a couple of minutes. So if you want to play at home, you can go out and do some Canadian comics shopping now. But in the meanwhile, if you want to get in contact with me, like John did, you can email me at comicsandhistory@gmail.com. Or you can go on over to Facebook and like the Comics and History Facebook page and get regular updates on upcoming episodes. Folks, until another 14 days have come and gone, this class is once again in recess.